Welcome to Government Contracting Weekly, sponsored by AOC Key Solutions Incorporated. Government Contracting Weekly is the only television program devoted exclusively to the competitive and dynamic world of government contracting. A world where coming in second place is not an option, but where principle-centered winning is the only approach.
Good morning, I'm Hilary Fordwich and welcome back to Government Contracting Weekly. We have a special multifaceted show for you today with insightful and useful information for you, the government contractor. We open with a luminary of our industry, Stan Solloway, the President and CEO of the Professional Services Council. We'll bring you an in-depth discussion with Stan, since he's privy to many of the different aspects of the entire procurement process. Then we'll be hearing from Jim McCarthy, the owner and technical director of Key Solutions, who will be sharing from his unique perspective, serving the entire government contracting industry, his own thoughts on the status of contracting in our current economic milieu. Finally, we're on location at the opening of a critical new component in our nation's defense, the National Security Solutions Center in Arlington, Virginia. We'll hear from both Les Rose, the president of the L3 National Security Solutions Group, and Dr. Charles Stiga, the president of Virginia Tech, as they discuss their groundbreaking new partnership. Let's join Stan Solloway in my conversation with him. Welcome back to the segment of the program where we're addressing the issues that an expert can share with us. Today we're lucky to have with us Stan Solloway. And Stan, I don't believe there's really anybody in Washington who is in the unique situation that you are. You've been both on the government side as Deputy Undersecretary in Defense, and also now you head up an organization that is sort of the voice and on the pulse of what's happening with government service providers. Can you tell us a little bit about what you see from your perspective as what your background brings to this unique situation?
Well, I think if I went through my whole history, you'd go, why is he even in this job? I've spent all of my career in the public policy arena.
Yes.
Politics and public policy, a variety of different public affairs areas. And it was in the early 90s, really, because I had a client who was a government contractor. Mm-hmm. That I started getting involved in some of the issues associated with the relationship between the government and the private sector. Mm-hmm. And it became more and more involved as trade association became a client in other companies, and then President Clinton came into office with the National Performance Review.
Right, yes.
And one of the key elements of that was reforming the federal acquisition system. Mm-hmm. And because of my client relationships, I got very involved in that and became fascinated by the relationship and the issues associated with the relationship. It's a very unique sort of world.
And you're in a unique situation with this.
Yeah, well, this was before I went into the government. I was in the private sector and I was learning the issues from a tactical level, but I always, as a policy guy, I always stepped back and thought this was really an interesting public policy arena because it really defines the relationship between the government and the private sector.
Yes.
And so as we went through the acquisition reforms in the early 90s, I became more and more involved, and I got a call out of the blue saying, why don't you come in and do this for real instead of playing at it on the outside. That's when I ended up at the Defense Department.
So what's been the most rewarding out of all you've been doing over the last, maybe just over a decade now?
At PSC, I think the most rewarding for the job is, and this is going to sound a little odd, but I feel like we're one of the rare organizations that has a lobbying focus, mm-hmm. but has maintained a high degree of credibility on all sides of the aisle, because we do approach things we try to be very objective and intellectually, have intellectual integrity, if you will, to what we focus on. That's not to say others aren't honest.
Yeah.
But we, I think, have built a reputation both within industry and in the government of being a really good interlocutor. As an organization can help solve problems, not just take a position.
Right.
And it's been now over a decade that we've been able to do that and sustain that through 2 different administrations, multiple mm-hmm. different agency leaders, and lots of changes in the Congress.
Yes. Stan, there's a lot of dialogue right now about sequestration. It's sort of on the top of everyone's mind. Everyone has to be either addressing it and or preparing for it and doing whatever they can. What are you doing at PSC? What are you seeing from all of your members?
Well, from a perspective of what we're doing, we're simply just trying to help them, help our members understand what the current dynamics are, mm-hmm. And offering what limited advice one can offer in terms of how one prepares for the potential of sequestration. You know, sequestration is one of those strange Washington creations that everybody opposes, but nobody's prepared to defeat yet.
Yes.
Because there's such polarization.
And
it was never designed to happen. It was designed to be a threat, and now the threat's becoming very real. And At this point in time, it still looks like it's a very real possibility, and we have no choice but to sort of get prepared for it. It's very complicated. It's very difficult for an individual company to really define how and where they might be impacted.
The ramifications
for their individual segment. In some cases, companies won't feel it very much. In other cases, they'll feel it more.
Where will they feel it more? Which of you have about 350 members,
Yep.
is that right? So which sort of segment are going to feel it more?
Well, it's very hard to say. That's what, I think there's some areas you can look at in the federal budget and realize that no matter who's in office, they're the top priorities. Cybersecurity, information technology, big data, analytics, healthcare IT, all of those areas, so that whatever budget is available, they will be high priority spend areas. And so if you're in those areas and well embedded, the impacts on you may be less than other areas which are a little bit more discretionary, if you will, or a little bit less of a priority, because those are nonpartisan priorities, if you will. I think, but the other piece is that people have to understand, and it's very hard to drill down a little bit and recognize that sequestration is complicated in how it's going to be implemented, and until we have very specific instructions and direction from the Office of Management and Budget, we really won't know specifically where the impacts are going to be.
Yes.
We can make some guesses. We kind of get a little bit more of a sense kind of each week.
Where are some of your guesses generally? I mean, each week it's going to change, but generally.
Well, if you think about it, just very quickly, you think about what sequestration says is that we have to take $100+ billion out of the budget, immediate spending. Half from DOD and half from the civilian agencies. So if we start on the civilian side, give or take a $450 billion budget, take the entire Department of Veterans Affairs out of the equation because they're exempt from sequestration.
Yes.
On the DOD side, military pay and benefits, the president is going to declare them exempt. So that's $135, $140 billion out of a $525 billion base budget.
So everything else
is vulnerable. So your denominator changes.
Yeah.
And so that's what drives how deep the cuts will be. Then you have to recognize, so if we start from that, that's about a 10% annualized hit for DOD, give or take, and probably similar to the civilian side. Then you have to realize that it's all going to be shoehorned into 3/4 of the fiscal year. So that increases the percentage reduction because it's all squeezed into a shorter period of time.
And into those things that aren't, those agencies that aren't exempt areas.
And so you could be looking at 12, 13, or 14% of the remaining dollars in those. So then the question becomes, what priorities are going to get funded and what won't? And that's where the complications come in. You get into this issue of what level does the law give the agency authority to determine how to spend the money versus what level is it pro rata? Because the law says it comes down vertically through the agency to the program, project, and activity level is what they call it. But that has multiple definitions and multiple meanings to different people. It's different for DOD than it is for the civilian agencies, and that's what we're waiting for to see how the administration plans to define it.
The discretion, their discretion.
And because underneath that line is where there's discretion to the agency secretary to move money around, if you will.
Having been on both sides of the aisle and with the amount of time you've been with PSC, I know that you're optimistic to a certain degree about the future. Can you, for our viewers in particular, say, in this era of austerity, what should they still be optimistic about? There are a lot of dollars still out there. There's a lot we still need to do to serve the government. What other issues should they be optimistic about?
Well, I think it starts with that. I mean, it starts with very complex mission challenges. There's still going to be a very robust market out there. It's not going to be the salad days of 2004, 5, and 6 when we were seeing double-digit growth, but we're going through a rough period. The market will be rougher. Our government customers are facing enormous challenges, but at the same time, there's huge mission requirements that have to get done. And if you look at what the government really needs to do and where its highest priorities are, they are by and large areas that are going to require more, not less, engagement with the private sector. The talent, the capabilities are more and more and increasingly resident in the private sector for those areas, particularly around technology and all that technology means, not just IT, but technology kind of across the business enterprise, if you will.
So the innovation and the sophistication of the commercial market is needed.
The human capital.
Yes.
If you look at the federal workforce demographics, they are slightly worse than the public workforce demographics, where we have 4.5 times as many people over 50 as under 30 in the federal government.
Is it worse to be older then?
Yeah, well, there are positives.
I know what you mean.
But there's a dramatic imbalance.
Yes.
And there's a lot of concern about mid-career, where there's going to be a huge bathtub effect as the senior folks exit, who's behind them, because people have been exiting at a faster rate that they've been aging up in the federal workforce. Take that even a step further. If you look at the information technology workforce in government, there are 5,000 I believe about 5,000 information technology personnel who are under 30, and there are 37,000 who are over 50. Now, if you look at the commercial technology space, you would expect to see exactly the reverse demographic.
Yes.
So there's huge demographic and skills issues the government's faced. We have to hope as citizens that the government is able to recruit and retain top technology talent, because we need a smart customer. But the bulk of the implementation, the planning, the integration, and the utilization of technology in all of its forms is going to require tremendous private sector engagement. And I think that's going to sustain this market as it has been the driver of this market for many, many years.
Yes. We've actually seen, and from the show, even the people we're interviewing and talking to, that a lot of government officials now are really embracing this teaming with the marketplace more than ever. Are you seeing that?
Well, it's been a mixed bag.
Okay,
it's a mixed bag. There's a resistance on the part of many people in government to engage too closely with their contractors and to get too close. But there's a recognition by those who actually understand programs and needs and requirements best that you can't do any of this in a vacuum. The company can't serve its customers in a vacuum. The customer can't engage with the company in a vacuum. You need a collaborative environment in which to identify and pursue various solutions. And it's been a real focal area of attention from the administration. They've been trying to push more communication, and senior administration officials are very open that they're getting resistance from the field to that because of some of the issues of the past where members of Congress or others accuse them of being too cozy with industry, when what they're really trying to do is
have a dialogue
and a collaborative relationship, which is very different than being cozy. So as we look forward, it's going to be a sizable market. There are tremendous needs. The government is going to hopefully be able to attract and retain the skills it needs to effectively work with industry, but it's not going to replace the private sector.
But that's good for us. That's good for everybody in the private sector.
It's good for the private sector, and I think it's good for government because it gives you the opportunity, if you do it right, to constantly refresh and not get stuck in a rut. And that gets down to how the government conducts its procurements, how it manages, and how it rewards and incentivizes performance.
Great. Stan, not everybody can agree on everything, and certainly your members, even though they're all service contractors, they have different ideas on some things, but there must be general consensus. What do you see that people coalesce on and come together the most on?
I think that we have virtual unanimity on a concern based on current trends, and that is, in a market of austerity, where resources are constrained, the natural market behavior is going to be to survive. Companies are going to have to do whatever they can to book work, perform for the customer, even if it means lower or even no margins, just to survive the downturn. That's a natural, any market would do that. Survival is much more important than bidding something really fancy and dying on the vine.
Yes.
The way that can lead to some very unhealthy behaviors in a marketplace. And I think there's absolute unanimity in industry that a lot of the responsibility to help stop that lies with the customer, to enable companies to actually propose and be rewarded for innovation and performance, not just living as what we see today in what we call low-price, technically acceptable world, which is, again, almost...
Thing of the past.
Well, it is a thing of the past, but it's also the default, and it's the big common thread we hear from everybody across the industry today, that everything is coming out either officially or unofficially and being awarded based on low price with minimal technical qualifications. That's largely a reflection of the resource limitations and some other forces. But it's a very unhealthy reflection because it's actually going to create an environment which the government's not getting great response. It's going to cost more money in the long run. And then the industry that emerges as we come out of this downturn, which we will at some point, won't be as strong and as agile and innovative as the industry we would really like to see.
Because we're not incentivizing
Because we're not incentivizing the right behaviors. And so I think that's an area, how we utilize a period of uncertainty and a period of austerity to actually foster an industry that's stronger, more agile, more innovative, and more responsive down the road than less so.
To elevate.
To elevate it.
Yeah. You have for many years, Stan, testified, and you've had much experience. We've read a lot about how you've testified. From your personal perspective, what has been perhaps the most interesting that our viewers may get an insight into that whole world that you're very privy to?
Well, let me start by saying there's two kinds of hearings. There are hearings that are designed to really have a dialogue, and then there are hearings that are designed for pure theater. The ones where there's serious dialogue tend to be dry and serious and lots of questions, and certainly have plenty of opportunity to do those. I've had a couple of experiences where the theater has way overwhelmed the substance.
Oh, yes.
I had one case when I was in the Pentagon where I had to testify before a committee, the chairman of which had been the candidate I ran a campaign against. when he first ran for Congress 15 years before that, and his chief aide had been my campaign manager. And I saw the aide whispering to the chairman during the hearing, and I knew he was telling him who I was, and I knew that wasn't going to be a happy situation.
Not good, no.
But I think the funniest one I think has ever happened to me, or most dramatic, if you will, was a hearing on insourcing and outsourcing, which is always a contentious issue, and the public employee unions and the industry are always at loggerheads. And we had a hearing one time before the Senate. It was held in the largest hearing room the Senate has, because it was intentionally scheduled during the public employee union's legislative conferences.
A delightful time.
So the hall was full, and they had overflow rooms because the unions brought all of their people to the Hill to attend the hearing.
So it's contentious just to begin with.
Well, and it was, I've never seen in my life anywhere, because hearings are like courtrooms. The audience is silent. There was hooting, there was hollering, there was stomping and cheering, and it was completely out of control. And the senator who was chairing the hearing kind of quietly tried to chide the audience to be quiet, but he was kind of getting a kick out of it too. At one point he asked me, he said, well, why are you opposed this? Do you not like competition? And I said, sir, we're all about competition. That's the point. And he put on his best Tom Cruise face and said, you can't handle the competition. And the place erupted. People were on their feet cheering and stomping. And this was a Senate hearing.
But that's a circus.
It was a circus. And I actually got calls from his staff and the minority staff the next day apologizing, saying they'd never seen anything like it. So, you know, you have moments like that, and then you have moments where you get members of Congress who actually know something and are asking good, tough questions. And, it runs the full gamut.
Stan, one of the questions that I tend to ask for our viewers' edification is an exit question regarding what keeps you up at night. You're in a position to know a lot about what's going on, but also privy to what's going on with a lot of your members. What keeps you up at night that's to do with your contracting world?
I think the thing that I'm most concerned about is this whole budget debate and the way it's playing out or not. You hear a lot of rumors and talk that, well, we might come to grips with it during the lame duck session of Congress, and that might happen. I'm not confident that they're going to be able to do it. I'm not sure why then versus now. It's just, I realize the elections could play a role. But the thing that worries me most in terms of that is not just for the industry but for the government is that we have to have an answer.
Yes.
And one can argue what the answer should be, but the worst thing that could happen is to continue for the government, the industry, the taxpayer to continue to live with this uncertainty and with climbing debt that we all know is out there. So there's got to be some ability to reach a consensus. And what I worry about, the thing that keeps me up at night, is if there's no deal during a lame duck, and I don't have confidence there will be, who's going to be there to make a deal in January? Yes. We have a lot of centrists, Democrat and Republican, leaving the Senate. I have yet to see the forces coalesce in a way where I begin to get confident that we could have that kind of compromise that is what statesmanship is all about, to enable us to have a clear path forward. One can disagree with the path, but predictability and clarity and a step forward is in many ways far preferable to the current uncertainty and dangers we face. And
for industry and government.
For everybody. This is a global issue. And so I think that to me is a nightmare scenario.
Okay. Well, you've given us a lot of information today. I'm sure our viewers are very grateful. So thank you for coming this morning. Thank you for being with me, Stan. Hopefully Stan Solloway's insights and recommendations were beneficial for you this morning. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Jim McCarthy, the Principal Owner and Technical Director of AOC Key Solutions, who's going to share his unique insights into every aspect of serving the government contracting industry.
Good morning. Of course, the overall trend is belt tightening, but today I'm going to share some insight into some trends within this overall trend. I examined 3 categories of interest to contractors and civil servants alike: financial, contractual, and proposals. The first category is financial trends. Here we see relentless downward pressure on contractor rate structures, particularly G&A and overhead. Unprepared companies are burdened by higher rates and are less competitive, leading to a shrinking contract base and less revenue. If unchecked, a vicious downward spiral results. There is also anecdotal evidence that contracting officers are vigorously resisting change orders, requests for equitable adjustment, and engineering change proposals. The second category is contractual. The trend is towards more that firm fixed price and fewer cost reimbursable contracts. The tendency is more low price, technically acceptable, or LPTA as it's called, and fewer best value procurements. Both large and small contracts are at risk by the government action. The large because targeting them yields the most dollars, the small because they are easy marks. The number of indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity, or IDIQ contracts is also on the rise. More task order requests impose ridiculously short response deadlines. We're also noticing a greater emphasis on public and private partnerships. Government is asking industry to invest more of its own funds and to assume more risk, apparently in return for longer contracts. In the third category, proposals, fewer dollars mean fewer RFPs, and fewer RFPs mean fewer contracts. The number of new starts is also down. Everywhere, costs are being deferred. There are commonplace delays in RFP releases, more slippages of proposal due dates, more award postponements, and some sectors are seeing more protests, almost to the point that they're now the rule rather than the exception. We're also noticing a spike in the number of protests alleging improper affiliation between small and large companies, and in part, this is because the number of small business set-asides is on the rise, as many agencies strain to meet socioeconomic goals, finally. Also, large businesses are resorting to more subcontracting to small primes on set-asides, something only reluctantly undertaken in more headier times. So what's to be done in light of these trends? How do we keep government and industry on the same page? In federal procurement, there is a widening cultural gap between government and industry. And as budget pressures mount, we are well served to narrow this gap. Expectations must be aligned. There must be true partnering, not lip service. But mostly, more dialogue is required between the parties. In the future, we will do our part to foster a common understanding between contractors and government. We will use this show to help bridge the chasm between the two. Stay tuned. Thank you.
Recently, I had an opportunity to attend the opening of the National Security Solutions Center in Arlington, Virginia, to witness the launch of a new partnership between L3's National Security Solutions Group and Virginia Tech. Let's hear Les Rose of L3's perspective. Les, I'd like to ask you about the center. What does this mean for Northern Virginia, businesses, government contractors, subcontractors, and for jobs in this region?
Well, it's an excellent opportunity for us to expand our footprint and to do more in Northern Virginia. We currently have about 2,000 employees in Northern Virginia, and so this opportunity with Virginia Tech will allow us to expand that footprint, and the subcontracting portion of it should be a normal situation.
Any idea of the kind of job projections this will make in the coming future in a certain number of years?
Well, we would anticipate, we're opening the center today, and we would anticipate that we'd have over 100 employees here in the next couple of years, within the next 2 years.
And so what should a subcontractor in this region do to familiarize themselves with your center? They could visit your website, of course. What else?
Well, of course, the website, and we would invite any of them. We have a very large small business outreach, and so Wayne Pizer, who runs that for me, is the Vice President for Small Business. And you can get in touch with him, and he would be able to direct you if you're in the cyber business. Obviously, we're focused on high technology, cyber defense in this area.
Thank you very much, Les. So for all of our viewers that are in the cybersecurity arena, this is going to be great, not just for our region, but for our national security.
Absolutely.
So thank you, Les.
Thank you.
After speaking with Les Rose, I had an opportunity to interview Dr. Charles Stiga, the president of Virginia Tech and L3's partner in this important initiative. Let's take a look. What would this mean in terms of your students and opportunities you're providing them, and then to the government contracting community in Northern Virginia?
Well, I think a couple of things. One is that they get a chance to be engaged in leading-edge research projects. Secondly, the faculty and our other support staff at the university can participate in reducing the cycle time that it takes to get innovations into the marketplace. And while we do marvelous research, L3 has a tremendous capacity for technology transfer, and they've got the staff and understanding of the market to do that. So this combination produces a real synergy that otherwise would not be possible without this partnership.
And then also for the government, of course, the government's going to be receiving those solutions to help with our national security much faster than they did before.
That's right.
What about in terms of speed? What are your students saying? How excited are they? Do you have some specific feedback and quotes for us?
Well, we have a number of students here. The Hume Center, which was funded by one of our alumni, provides a significant scholarship support for students who are interested in going into this area. We already have a number of students in the pipeline. They are already getting their security clearances, which is a serious problem in getting enough manpower to deal with these issues.
And that's big for the region, in fact.
Well, it's good for the nation,
yes,
but it's particularly useful for the region. And it gives them a whole new career path. These are very, very bright students. They're dedicated, and this kind of opportunity is really quite unique. And we're pleased to be able to provide it for them.
And I would think in terms of the government contractors maybe watching this morning, it gives them a pool of more talented individuals with security clearances. And when you tell a government contractor, we have students for you with security clearances as well, that will be a big difference.
Exceedingly valuable.
Great. So with that valuable piece of information, we hope that you as a viewer might turn to this center maybe sometime at the end of this year or the beginning of next year.
Yeah, it's, I mean, L3 is moving in. We just opened this facility about a year ago, and it is now completely occupied. And so, in fact, everybody keeps saying, why didn't you build 2 buildings? But I thought, we put $100 million in to build this one. And I thought that was enough to put at risk at the start.
Well, I think it's a lot, and I think our viewers are going to love hearing about this. So thank you very much.
Right.
Thank you, Dr. Stiga.
Take care.
You.
Bye-bye.
Now, this question was from Scott in McLean, Virginia, and Scott asks me, what is the best way to use subcontractors, both large and small, in the capture and proposal process?
The short answer is that the smart offerer will use every useful resource it can get its hands on. This should include resources, knowledge, manpower, specialized skills that it can get from any or all of its subcontractors. If you're managing or coaching a sports team during an important game, you would not leave one of your best players on the bench just because they're new to the team. Same thing here. New team members can play a role. Yes, companies argue that they don't want their teammates, which might be competitors on the next procurement, to get too close to their solutions and their strategies. I find this is a bogus argument, however. With all the staff mobility in the government contracting market in the DC area, no one has any real secrets anymore.
I hope you found today's show beneficial. I want to thank the professionals who helped us bringing it to you. Stan Solloway, who leads the Professional Services Council, Jim McCarthy of Key Solutions, and a special thanks to the outstanding professionals at L3 and Virginia Tech for sharing with us the truly groundbreaking National Security Solutions Center that they have recently launched in Arlington, Virginia. We'll see you next week.
You've been watching Government Contracting Weekly, sponsored each week by AOC Key Solutions Incorporated. Government Contracting Weekly is the only television program devoted exclusively to the competitive and dynamic world of government contracting. For additional information, comments, questions, or suggestions, please write us at governmentcontractingweekly.com.